Hello, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I feel compelled to get something off my chest and share with you how it is that I was so wrong and mistaken about Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and how it is that this game has slightly broken my heart, it's fair to say. And that's a genuine shame. I really don't want to be making this video, but I feel compelled to. In fact, today I'd already recorded a video about revisiting and my ongoing delight in The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, and how actually sharing that game with my lovely wife, who hitherto has only really watched me play Breath of the Wild, has been a revelation for both of us. I don't want to spoil it too much, but basically it's been really interesting to see the history of some of the aspects of Breath of the Wild and how those things interact with someone who's looking at it in the opposite direction. But just as I finished that video, I looked over to my games library and saw this game, the box, staring back at me, and I was reminded of how the game still hasn't been fixed. Now, back in June, I was so excited. I still am, as it were, excited at the potential of this game to be a wonderful and exciting spiritual successor to Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I was on board when the game was first announced, and although I didn't have the money to back it at the time, I was rooting for it. And I got this game as soon as it came out. I simply had to be there on the ground floor, no pun intended, for a castle exploration game, sharing the discovery of the secrets of the castle with my friends, and this experience was just so important to me. To really lose myself in. And early on, I wasn't blind to some of the issues that the game had. I saw that the loading screens, for example, between the shop and the classroom where my alchemist colleague was residing, was arbitrary and sometimes missing. Sometimes it was present, sometimes it took a long time, sometimes it took no time at all to load from one place to another. And I was willing to forgive that, because I believed, and to a certain extent do still believe, that the developers mean well, that they want to make the best game that they can. But it wasn't until I got to this part of the castle that I really became aware of just how unsatisfactory this port is. Ironically, given that this has become, I believe, the most purchased version of the game, this seems to be the most broken version of the game. And it was specifically here that I realised this. So we're about to go upstairs into another portion of the castle. And there we go. Can you see how that's really annoying in a game that's about rhythm and about exploration? I'll go back down again, jump back down into an area that we've just been in. And there we go. Now sometimes in gaps like this, there are enemies just above the parapet, just above the section where you're jumping towards on the next platform. And you lose all momentum. Your character, and frankly your sense of direction, your sense of what you're about to do, is completely destroyed just by transitioning from one part of the game to another. And that is heartbreaking. That is truly heartbreaking. Now when we visit the Twitter feed for the game, Sword or Whip, we see that every now and then they're making announcements about the Switch version. One of the announcements, or one of the actual patches that they made fairly early on, was actually to nerf the game. So they took away the potency of the of some of the magic elements, having portraits float around you, for example. There's a if I can, it's been a while since I've played it, so I can't quite remember. There you go. So this used to have, I think, 5 portraits float around you. Now it has 3. And you could say, okay, yeah, fair enough. They're balancing the difficulty of the game, because the portraits act as a shield and also an offensive element, and they just decided that that was necessary. But they've nerfed the game before they fixed it, before they fixed some of the slightly jittery controls, and certainly before they fixed the issues with loading. It's heartbreaking. And it was just recently, in fact. I'll just get my phone. It was recently, in fact, that they finally announced loosely I suppose a pathway for fixing the Switch version. So at Sword or Whip, Bloodstained, ROTN, Ritual of the Night. And in that we have an update 98, I believe, 5 days ago, as of today. And essentially it boils down to the fact that within the next 2 months, perhaps, it's not entirely clear, we'll get a passable, a workable version of this game. And I'm still not inclined to celebrate. This game should have been playable from the very beginning, given that this game was announced as a title that was going to be ported to the Wii U, a less powerful console, and yes, okay, with a different architecture, but you know, they've had time. The Switch has been out for a big enough chunk of the development cycle for this game. They should have known. Some people on Twitter are suggesting that we should be given codes for the PlayStation 4 version of the game, that the developers need to make good on this by allowing people who have purchased or were promised even workable versions of this game, if they were backers of the title for the Switch platform, that we should be able to play the game in a workable and satisfactory standard now, and the best way to do that is to play it on the PlayStation 4 version. Give us a download code. Now, I don't know how I feel about that. That is an extreme solution to the problem. But at this point, 4 months, almost 5 months after the initial release of the Switch platform, I'm more and more inclined to agree that before I progress any further in this castle, I want to know that I'm going to be able to control it and go from place to place without excessively long load screens. And specifically, for example, dropping from one place to another without having to wait for a long period of time. And don't get me wrong, I remember 20 years ago when load screens were an integral part of the gaming experience, when having a super long load on your friend's PlayStation, for example, was just part of the expected gaming pathway. You know, it's just what you had to put up with. But with this game, specifically on a cartridge, the loads should be quicker, if anything else, than on a disc version, depending again on the architecture and on some of the assets in the game. And according to the Twitter announcement, it seems that what they're having to do in order to make this game playable, or rather, sorry, acceptable, it is playable. I don't want to over-exaggerate. It is playable. But in order to make this game acceptable, what they're having to do is rebuild it from the ground up. They're rebuilding models and environments and textures and effects from the get-go. So in other words, the game on the cartridge is not the game. And in the future, if someone is unfortunate enough to get hold of a copy of this game, let's say after Nintendo has stopped supporting the Switch's online capabilities, or when the store or the capacity to download patches is no longer there, they're not going to be able to experience the game as intended and as promised in a campaign announcement that emphasized quality and emphasized a desire to put us as the people who adore this style of game, and people who really appreciate, for example, Castlevania, put us first, put us at the front of their minds in terms of gameplay experience. Now, I don't want to ramble on. I don't want to labour the point. I think you get the point, because I don't like making negative videos, and I also don't like being this disappointed. I also don't like just going around in circles in the same portion of the castle. But I have promised myself that I'm not going to see more of this castle until it's fixed. And it looks like it might not be fixed until Christmas, or until the new year, or goodness knows when. It's very disappointing, to say the least. So, yeah, I was wrong to have such faith in these people. There we go. As ever, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching an unusually negative video from me, but I think this hasn't really been negativity. It's disappointment. Yeah, I'm genuinely a little bit heartbroken. However, look forward to me revisiting Zelda Link's Awakening in a future video, and as ever, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.